Hi, my name is Peggy Sinent, and I'm an attorney in South Pasadena, Florida. And this video I've entitled Tales from Zoom Crypt, because as COVID has arrived in our judicial circuit, there's been a series of efforts to keep the court system active and moving along, and one of those has been to offer Zoom conferences, Zoom trials, in efforts to help give people access to the court and resolve their problems. A lot of our judicial judges have put out preferences, which teaches as attorneys the expectation on Zoom. Some even have helpful hints. But I have found only by trying out several Zoom conference calls and having the benefit of watching a mock Zoom trial that as an attorney, my skills in video appearance and video talking is actually deserving as much attention as my legal arguments. So in really brief summary, today's video is designed to help other fellow attorneys learn how to improve both their appearance and their structure on Zoom, so when they're sharing argument with the court, whether that be with jurors or at a bench trial or even with other counsel, we don't serve as a distraction and the client's needs are still met. And I've sort of laughed as I thought of a title for this because in a way, with the arrival of Zoom hearings, substance becomes backseat to the first step of style, and that's pretty unusual for attorneys because normally we're highly focused on substance. But on the Zoom call, if the receiver of the message is caught up in a distraction, such as poorly lit area, maybe a background, or even your own physical appearance, then the receiver of that message has a barrier to communication. And as attorneys, our goal is to always try to reach and communicate a point of law. So the Florida Supreme Court recognized that for some of us, this new form of having hearings was going to be a steep learning curve. And we're very lucky that the Florida Supreme Court put out a memo on best practice in pandemic hearings, and buried deep in that memo is a link to the 17 Judicial Circuit mock trial. And it was a trial conducted in a personal injury action all on Zoom, and the parties in this would be all the players you would find in a regular trial. And I was lucky enough to be able to watch that. And between my own practical experience coupled with watching this helpful teaching aid, I realized why my arguments are important in court. What has become equally important is how you actually appear on the Zoom camera. So, number one, lighting truly does matter. If it's helpful to know, a good way to practice lighting is to take your phone, your cellular phone, put it on the selfie, and walk around either your office or your house and find a lighting which you actually appear the most flattering. I know as lawyers we never talk about our failures. My first Zoom call, I chose to sit in front of a window that had a shade, but it felt like you were watching Sound of Music where they were singing Climb Every Mountain and light was streaming through. So I felt bad for the other attorneys on the call because I was unsure that they were able to move beyond like the beacon of light that my head had become. So finding appropriate lighting is really tough. You can also buy, which we've now ordered, a light ring that can also help and give you good lighting. So you're able to present an image to people over a Zoom technology that you do not become the distraction. And also, we actually look a little better. So who doesn't love that? The second thing I found was background, and background is really significant. If you get a chance to watch the 17th Judicial Circuit's mock trial, it's really helpful because one of the jurors, for example, sits in front of a beautiful abstract art painting. For those of you unfamiliar with abstract art, it's a lot of visual images without a lot of structure. And I know as I watched this trial, I was really caught up more in observing the painting than I was observing was the juror showing indications that he was hearing the argument and processing each side when they spoke. But background really does matter. Third, position. So where you place your camera, how you sit has great impact. And for example, on my first Zoom call, because remember we talk about our failures, I had my camera ultra low, and so I was so lucky that we were able to look at my untouched up roots in my hair. And then later in that same call, I picked up, and I'll show you a pen, and just to kind of began to do this kind of thing. And it wasn't that I wasn't interested in what they were saying, but that kind of gesture sent a message that I was not really attentive. And that's the last thing we want to do when we're interfacing with the court or our clients. So that type of thing matters. The fourth and final piece that has two prongs that I learned a lot on, number one was rethinking how I communicate, and to actually practice communication skills that occur from here up. So normally as attorneys, we're used to being in a courtroom where we have great latitude, in most cases, to walk around, perhaps make grand gestures, but as you can see from this video, when you're trapped to a window that's like this, my only vehicle of communication is going to be inside that square box. And so we're really talking to a small pin screen camera, and the more you get used to keeping your attention focused on that camera in an engaging way, so whether you practice, slight nods or even listening, turning your head, but whatever it is, whatever that skill set is, finding a means to connect with your listener in this window is really challenging. I don't recall that course in law school, perhaps you had it, but for me, I'm actually practicing those skills because that's a lot more effective than what I did on my first call of my pen and tapping and thinking. So it had a whole different image. Second part of communication goes back to more focused on the vehicle of how you present when you're communicating. And it is really important to think about, how does my image I'm projecting support my message? So for example, even something simple as concealer for ladies can go far to take away distractions that, maybe you are tired from working all night on the case, and if the viewer is not looking at something on the appearance or maybe in what you're wearing, but finding the right image is very significant. Now I know most attorneys recoil when we talk about that, but in this new age of remote technology, I have found perhaps watching more videos on makeup techniques when you're on camera, or for example, what colors are flattering to you, goes a long way in having a listener of your message through remote technology process you so they're not distracted by what you're wearing. So I hope these tips have been helpful. I would really encourage you to check out the 17th Judicial Circuit virtual mock trial. It is available on a link in the Florida Supreme Court's Best Practice Memo. I think that came out in early May. And I appreciate the opportunity to share what I've learned, and hopefully you'll have a positive Zoom experience.